And we are live. Good day. I think the lighting is pretty decent this time. I've got a whole little contraption set up here. Hello, Ron. Hello, Krista from Chile. From Barcelona, nice. So if anyone isn't getting notifications, if anyone wants to get, in order to get notified, in order to get sent a notification when I do a live stream, you have to click on the bell icon that's right near the subscribe button, where the subscribe button normally is. And hello from New Mexico. So, it's been longer than I wanted since my last video. And I'm going to be really busy the next couple weeks, so I figured I had to do something while I can. And so let me just pull up a couple web pages here so I can see the comments and stuff like that. Hello. So Chris Shelton is going to be doing a video. He's been working on it for a while of like how the Emeter actually works scientifically. Hello in Edinburgh. Hello from in Nova Scotia. And so this is not trying to preempt Chris's video. This isn't trying to get into the actual science of how an Emeter works. It's how Scientologists think the Emeter works, which I think you're going to be surprised is not much different than how the Emeter actually works scientifically. It's just that, well, I won't try to preempt my own explanation. Hello in Iceland. For real? That's awesome. Hello, Debbie. Give some other people a chance to join before I launch into it. Hello in Las Vegas. Yes, the block party was fun. Hello in Tarpon Springs. Hello in Denmark. No, are you really in Antarctica? I think you're messing with me. Well, thank you so much. The puppy. You know, the puppy's in the living room. I could bring him in. In fact, I probably will by the end of the video. Hello in South Africa. Hello in Nebraska. Are you really at East Bay and Keene? That's awesome. So East Bay and Keene. Oh, wait, Keene all the way. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Actually, East Bay and Keene. There's a Krav Maga gym right there on East Bay and Keene that I went to for a few months. All right, we're just gonna wait a little bit longer here while I get some stuff in order. Alright, so I'm just trying to figure out how I actually pull up my own live stream, so give me a moment on my desktop. Any knowledge on the cult in Ontario, Canada? Well, Toronto's in Ontario, right? I don't want to be like typical stupid American, don't know anything about any other countries, but Toronto, Canada. Yes, it's in Ontario. I got it right. I actually know a lot of the guys in Toronto, at the Toronto org in Scientology. And also Toronto, above the Toronto org is the Continental Liaison Office for Canada. So that's like the Sea Org base for Canada. They're supposed to manage all of the orgs in Canada. Canada's not a very big area of business for Scientology, but there are a lot of dedicated folks up there. In fact, my sister-in-law's family are big Scientologists in Vancouver. And I know Krista Hallinan and Jennifer Davidson and Bill Bishop from Toronto. All right, still trying to figure out how to watch my own live stream. I usually have been able to figure this out pretty quickly in the past. Here we go. Have you talked about the mock raid that they held in downtown Clearwater yet? Well, they actually canceled that. Like, they didn't do it. They were scheduling. I was assuming it was for one of their internal videos. You know, like a video they're going to show at an event. Like, it made sense to me why they would be filming a mock FBI raid. What didn't make sense to me is why they would be doing it in Clearwater. They have plenty of properties and stages and sets and studios. Why would they actually film a pretend FBI raid on the public streets of Clearwater in one of their own buildings? It seems like a stupid thing to do. But then they canceled it. So they didn't even do that stupid thing. All right, I have finally found it. Popping out the chat. Okay, good. Got that taken care of. Now just let me tweet this thing. All right, cool. Today's live stream brought to you by Diet Coke. Stay fresh. I don't even know if that's their slogan. All right. So how do Scientologists think the Emeter works? Some people call it a lie detector. Some people just say it reads hand moisture. Some people say it helps with hypnosis, the small electrical current that the battery of an Emeter uses. I've heard all of these things. Some people just don't understand what the hell the Emeter has to do with an auditing session. Some people don't understand how the Emeter is used in a particular way in an auditing session and a different way in a security check, where a security check, it's more of an interrogation. And so the use of the Emeter seems more analogous to a lie detector, whereas in an auditing session, you're not interrogating a person as far as like trying to get them to divulge something that they don't want to divulge. Usually an auditing session is more of a cooperative communication process. It's not totally different than a security check. So I don't know, let's just kind of roll right into it. I don't really know where to begin. So there is a book in Scientology that is called Understanding the Emeter. And this book I don't think was written by L. Ron Hubbard. It's a very pictorial book. There's a lot of sketches and graphics and pictures and stuff like that. And I've read this book so many times, it's not even funny. So I can give a really good description of how Scientology explains the Emeter to Scientologists. Scientologists do know that you can mess with the Emeter by squeezing the cans or by having wet hands or dry hands or wiggling your finger. It's not a secret to Scientologists that the Emeter can be manipulated. The reason why that's not a big deal to Scientologists is that they're not trying, for the most part, to manipulate the Emeter. Now, there have been many examples I've given in previous videos where Scientologists do try to manipulate the Emeter. But for the most part, Scientologists are taught that the Emeter can be manipulated so that they know not to manipulate it, if that makes any sense. Electrically, physically, Scientologists are told that the Emeter really just measures resistance to an electrical flow, and that the Emeter has a battery. It's either half a volt or 1.5 volts. It's not like 9 volts. It's like 1 volt or half a volt of electricity that the Emeter's battery constantly flows through. If I ever reach up to my phone, I'm just clearing alerts. When you hold the cans, they call the cans, they're really just electrodes. Just Google an Emeter and you'll see what this looks like. When someone holds the can, 1.5 volts. When someone holds the cans of an Emeter, it completes an electrical circuit. of which the person holding the cans is a part of. And you have this electrical current going through this circuit. And the emeter is, it's a potential, a variable resistor, a galvanometer. What do they call it? A potential, yeah, a potential, no, I can't believe I'm getting this wrong. A variable resistor. And that the emeter is literally just measuring the resistance to the electrical flow. Now, that's not any sort of watershed science. You know, like, that's just totally normal. Potentiometer, there you go. Thank you for that. That's not where Scientologists think the emeter does such an amazing job. Like, oh my God, like, Scientologists do not think that the emeter is the only device out there that measures resistance to an electrical flow. They're not under that illusion. They might, depending on their familiarity with anything to do with electronics, they might think the emeter is one of the more sensitive tools in this regard. They might think that the emeter is the best suited tool to do it in a human body, right? Didn't you make it fairly high up the technical side of the bridge? Kind of. I'll address that a bit later. But it's not how the emeter works where Scientologists are messed up. It's why the emeter works that Scientology diverges from science. I mean, their beliefs on why, what is it that is causing the resistance to the electrical flow within the pre-clear to change? That is where Scientology's beliefs diverge from scientific belief. So anyone who's familiar with Dianetics is familiar with this concept of a mental image picture in the reactive mind called an engram. I've heard many people point out that the very phrase itself, mental image picture, is redundant. And for whatever reason, that never occurred to me when I was in Scientology. I can see why somebody would say that. But it's a mental image picture, and that image and picture are redundant. That's just how L. Ron Hubbard said the word. So Scientologists believe that your mind is composed of trillions of these mental image pictures. So basically, if you were to close your eyes and think of someone riding a bicycle, you're looking at an image. This is how Scientologists view it. You're looking at an image, and that image actually has mass. That image is real. You might not be able to see it and touch it with your hands, but that's because it's a fine, higher level of energy. What level of energy? That's too specific. Don't ask too many questions. How do you know it's a higher level of energy? Again, don't ask too many questions. L. Ron Hubbard simply says that mental image pictures, whether held in the analytical mind or the reactive mind, are actual energy and have actual mass and have an actual wavelength. How do you measure the wavelength? Don't ask too many questions. Okay. So the Scientologists believe that when you are getting auditing, and the best way to describe this is just to talk about Dianetics auditing, because when you start to ask how this applies to Scientology, it goes down a little bit of a rabbit hole. Because Scientology auditing doesn't all deal with engrams, but we don't even need to get into the weeds like that. So let's just say that someone's getting Dianetics auditing using the emeter. Scientologists believe that these engrams, these mental pictures that are recordings of moments of pain and unconsciousness, have actual mass to them. And that when you're holding the cans and you're in an auditing session and the auditor asks you to recall one of these moments of pain and unconsciousness, and you have your eyes closed and you're recalling it, that your attention, like simply paying attention, thinking, putting attention on something, has energy. That is an energy flow with actual wavelength. What wavelength? Don't ask too many questions. And that once you, as one pole, like let's say you're a positive terminal, I'm just, whatever, making this up. You're the positive terminal, and the incident, the recording of pain and unconsciousness that you're recalling is, let's say, the negative terminal. And your attention is a flow of energy. So your attention is basically the wire connecting you to the incident, and you get an actual flow of energy between yourself and this incident. And that this flow of energy and this incident, I'm explaining it two different ways, and I'm going to go slowly here. that this actual flow of energy has mass. It has mass. And when that energy is in play, that is increasing the resistance to the electrical flow, and that is why you see the needle move on the e-meter. I do not know. I am not aware of any actual study that has been done to prove how the e-meter works. And I mean specifically the e-meter, not machines like the e-meter, not other potentiometers, not other variable resistors, not other galvanometers. I mean specifically the e-meter. Because even I, who no longer believes in the story of Scientology and the reactive mind and facsimiles and engrams and all that stuff, can't explain how certain reads occur on the e-meter. So like someone who's just has, you know, believes not a shred of Scientology or a shred of this, anything about Thetans or the reactive mind or whatever, would probably just say that the e-meter is only reading on palm sweat. And I simply don't know how that's possible, even though I do understand why somebody would say that. Now, so the way I just explained it, I explained like a positive pole and then the negative, the positive terminal, the negative terminal, and that the attention was kind of like the wire. But there's another more spiritual way that Scientologists are told this works, other than just purely electrical in that regard. They believe that the reactive mind exists in some nebulous space around your body, and it exists in various stages of restimulation. Sometimes if you're feeling great and everything's going wonderful and you're well fed and you're well rested and you're in a great mood, the reactive mind has kind of moved away from you. And if you're tired and hungry and in a bad mood and you're feeling kind of upset and whatever, that certain parts of your reactive mind have kind of moved in on you, gone into restimulation. And Scientologists believe that when these parts of the reactive mind that they believe have mass move in closer to you, that it is increasing. That increased mass is impinging on your body, is impinging on the magnetic field of your body, and increasing the resistance of your body by increasing the resistance or the density of the magnetic field, and that this is what is increasing the resistance on the e-meter. It's not that complicated to explain how Scientologists think the e-meter works. There's other things they're told about the e-meter, that it's not reading on your conscious answers, it's reading just below your level of awareness. So in other words, if the auditor says that the e-meter is indicating there's something there, that there's something there even if you don't think there's something there. Like, so Scientologists are told mechanically how the e-meter works, but then they're given a whole bunch of significance about what the e-meter means that isn't directly tied in any sensible fashion to the explanation of how the e-meter works. Like L. Ron Hubbard says the e-meter is supposed to read just below your level of awareness, but not really giving much of an explanation for how that works, even mechanically. How would that work? Because there's the particular way that the e-meter is used in auditing, like Dianetics, where you're actually talking about, you know, mental image pictures that at least Scientologists believe have mass and at least believe can impinge on you and increase the resistance. At least mechanically, you could see how someone could be convinced that's how it works. But when you're talking about using the e-meter in circumstances like security checking, where you're asking confessional type questions, like what wouldn't you want me to know? What aren't you telling me? Have you told all? These kind of questions. There's no real explanation for how the reads on the e-meter are supposed to be reliable when they're being used in a way that doesn't have anything to do with facsimiles or engrams or the reactive mind. And there's all sorts of conversations we could have about that. I know any seasoned Scientologist watching this video is going to answer that question in terms of postulates and restimulation in other regards other than engrams. And I don't even want to kind of go down that rabbit hole. But with the little description that I've given so far, I'm going to jump on to the questions and see if there's any questions about the e-meter and how it's used in what I've said so far. Might take me a moment to scroll through these. Yeah, so there's a question here about the video that Chris Shelton is going to do. So he's doing a lot more work into actually explaining, I think this is accurate, explaining how the Emeter works in reality, not necessarily how Scientologists think it works. Because all you'd have to do is read the book Understanding the Emeter, and you know how Scientologists think it works. That doesn't really require any research. That's not exactly what Chris is working on. I am looking forward to his video. So there's a comment here. Turd Ferguson. Hello, Turd. Galvanism is affected by many factors. Perspiration is just one of them. Well, let me look up the definition of galvanism. Electricity produced by a chemical reaction and the therapeutic use of electric currents. Electricity, especially when produced by chemical means, as in a cell or a battery. Okay, so this is something where I immediately know that I don't know what I don't know. So, like, I don't know scientifically what could affect the conductivity of a body at any given moment, or the resistance of the body at any given moment, other than change in the moisture level of the skin. Like, I don't know. I can't think of what would make just a standalone body more or less resistant to an electrical flow at any given second or minute other than the surface conductivity of the skin. And I'd love to know what the real answer to that is. And I think that's an example of what Chris Shelton's working on. So when you say galvanism is affected by many factors, that's very easy for me to believe. I just don't know what would be an example of that. Cellular saline content. Yeah, but if you're just sitting there in a chair getting auditing, is your cellular saline content going both up and down? How does that happen? I don't know. And is it going up and down second to second? No, but the resistance on the Emeter, as measured by the tone arm on an Emeter is what is the big lever to change, to measure the resistance. That's going up and down all over the place in an auditing session. You see what I'm saying? So is mass tangible? The demonstration of the pinch test on the Emeter is convincing. Does the meter read only negative emotions like pain or positive emotions like strong joy as well? Okay, so let's get one thing straight. The Emeter does not register any emotions whatsoever. Not even Scientologists believe that it does. Scientologists believe that the Emeter is registering simply emotional charge, not a particular emotion. Like, it's not like when the Emeter does a certain read, you have a certain emotion. When it does another read, you have another emotion. The Scientologists don't believe that. But it is true that if you are holding the cans of an Emeter and somebody pinches you and you feel pain, that Emeter needle is going to fall to the right, and then you have to adjust the tone arm down to bring the Emeter back on the dial, and that indicates less resistance to the electrical flow. If that Emeter falls to the right and you have to bring it back to center, the fall to the right has indicated less resistance. When the resistance to that voltage, that flow, that current, when the resistance goes down, the needle falls to the right. When the resistance goes up, the needle rises to the left. So Scientologists say it falls to the right, rises to the left. A fall is a movement to the right, and a rise is a movement to the left. Skin temperature, blood pressure, heart rate. Okay, I'm going to have to tackle that in a moment. Okay, so the question here was, does the Emeter read only on negative emotions like pain or positive emotions like strong joy as well? So in an auditing session, the way Scientologists would view this is that as certain parts of the mind are being restimulated and put into play, that the resistance in your body goes up, and the needle goes way over to the left, and the tone arm has to be adjusted to the right to bring the needle back on the dial, and that is showing that auditing is happening. In order for auditing to occur, Scientologists believe that you have to take parts of the reactive mind and restimulate them, and then address them in auditing, and then they get unrestimulated, or they vanish, or they go away, or they move away, and then it moves back away, and then the resistance to the electrical flow comes back to normal range, and the tone arm comes back to normal range. And it's not that someone got negative emotions and then positive emotions. It's that the reactive mind was restimulated, and then, well, the word Scientologists would use is either keyed out or as is. Keyed out is when something just moves away, and as is, then when something vanishes. Okay. I hope I'm making some sense here. Let's find more stuff. There's a lot of questions that aren't related to the Emeter. I'm just passing them over for right now. Would the Emeter know if somebody was high or drunk? No, it would not. It would not at all. Emeter is a distraction used in the processing of brainwashing. I mean, I can understand why someone would say that. That's not a description that does any justice to understanding how the Emeter is actually used in auditing. You guys stalk people. Can we see an Emeter? I actually do have an Emeter around. I just don't want to bust it out. I mean, you can just search Google for an Emeter. You're going to see exactly what I would show you anyway. Who invented the Emeter? Volney Matheson invented the Emeter. Even Scientologists are told that. I guess they're also told that LRH refined it, or they followed LRH instructions to create it. And actually, I just finished reading recently Steve Kinane's book, Fair Game, and I think there was a whole section in there about the creation of the Emeter. And I can't remember if he revealed it wasn't really Matheson or that it was, but I'm almost positive it was Volney Matheson. Does it matter if you drink more caffeine before auditing? No, it does not. I suspect auditors have to be aware of the ways that people might trick the Emeter, like tapping your finger or your feet or fidgeting. Will an auditor call you out and stuff like that? Absolutely. That's totally correct. Auditors are absolutely taught how the Emeter can be manipulated so that they can tell, just from looking at the needle, whether the pre-clear is trying to manipulate the meter. Now, you can still manipulate it anyway without the auditor figuring it out, but that also implies you're not a cooperative participant in the auditing session, which you're kind of supposed to be. You can absolutely tell. They call it body motion. They call it a body motion read. You can usually tell when body motion is happening. And if a pre-clear is moving around in the auditing session, the auditor will simply ask the pre-clear to please stop moving around. Like, it's not a secret. It'd be like, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to repeat the question again. Please try not to move around. We would love to see a mock auditing session with the Emeter used. Yeah, that doesn't interest me in the least, but I can understand wanting to see that. Jason Begay called Marty Rathbun the Wayne Gretzky of auditing. It seems that you're saying this has little to do with his ability to read an Emeter, correct? Yeah. If Jason Begay said that, I remember him saying Marty Rathbun was the Wayne Gretzky of auditing. The reason he said that was just because Marty was pretty much given free reign. Marty was pretty much given free reign to audit however he wanted to audit. Most auditors don't have that freedom or that latitude. They have someone looking over their shoulder and questioning every move that they make, and every time they come out of session, someone's telling them everything they did wrong. And Marty Rathbun was the one used to audit any celebrity that was having a problem. So that's why he called him the Wayne Gretzky of auditing. It has nothing to do with, it has nothing to do with his ability to use the Emeter. It has to do with his ability to talk to the person across the table from him, feeling like he's free enough to do that, instead of feeling like his hands are tied as far as what he's allowed to say, what he can say, what he can't say, all this kind of shit. Okay, let's see. I've done it before and it never affected the auditing. I'm just not sure what that comment refers to. Did Hubbard ever make some kind of comprehensive guide for certain Emeter reads, such as what they look like and how to handle them? Oh, absolutely. I mean, that was that's one of the main cores of auditor training. And again, what I should say is there's a set of books that exist. I don't know if Hubbard wrote them or if they were compiled. There's a book of Emeter drills. There's a book called Emeter Essentials that goes over every Emeter reading, gives all the details of what they mean and what they look like. There's Understanding the Emeter, Introduction to the Emeter, the book of Emeter drills, and how the Emeter works. I'm sorry, let me do that again. The book of Emeter drills, Emeter Essentials, Understanding the Emeter, and Introduction to the Emeter. There's 4 books that are the core training manuals about how the Emeter works. And anyone doing auditor training reads those books. And anyone not doing auditor training can look at those books if they want to. They're not secret. Okay, going down these questions here. Do people have them in their homes? Do they stick their kids on it to find if they broke the rules or if they did bad things? Any Scientologist who has done any auditor training has 2 Emeters in their home. Any Scientologist who puts their kid on the e-meter to try to find out if they did or did not do something is just a fucking lunatic. Like, not even a normal Scientologist would do that. That's not how an e-meter is supposed to be used. I don't have any reason to believe the e-meter would even work that way. A lot of the power of the e-meter doesn't come from how it actually works. It comes from how Scientologists think it works and what they think it means. An auditor could, without even using the e-meter in any sensible way, sit across from someone and simply use the e-meter to front for them to get them to answer questions. Like, I could just have a meter in front of me and be like, what have you done that I don't know about? And pretend like I'm looking for the e-meter to give me a read. And then just look up at you, expectantly, waiting for you to answer the question, giving you the impression that the e-meter said you have an answer to this question. So I could go, what have you done that I don't know about? And then just look at you. This is how a lot of confessional auditing works in Scientology. And then you'd be like, oh, I haven't done anything. Oh, I haven't done anything. You'd be like, well, what did you think of when I asked you the question? Oh, I just thought that the answer was no. I could be like, okay, well, what other thought did you have when I asked you the question? I don't know. Well, what did you think of right there? What was that? What are you looking at right there? Yeah, there you go. What is that? Go ahead. Tell me what you're looking at right there. So it's an interrogation tool, but not because it works or doesn't work, but because the person on the other side of the e-meter thinks that you know how to use a fucking e-meter, and they think that the e-meter knows what it's talking about, and that you know what the meter's talking about, and you can leverage the e-meter this way as an interrogation tool. Not because it works or doesn't work, but because the person on the other side of the e-meter has been trained to believe that this e-meter is what will determine whether you've answered the question or not. Okay, does the heart rate have any influence on the e-meter? Not to my knowledge, and Scientologists don't think that it does. Which is the why the e-meter pants, what? Which is the why the e-meter is pants on head crazy? Okay. Would the e-meter know if somebody was high or drunk? No, I've already answered that one. I hope I haven't gone back in my questions here. Apparently, stress does change skin galvanic response. I've read about other lie detectors. Well, that is unquestionably true. That is unquestionably true. It's just that the e-meter, there's two different ways that the e-meter is used in auditing. One is just to register reactions to questions, and the other, which is just a momentary response. It's like, that's like a half a second response. Like if I ask you a question and the needle goes, it just falls to the right and then comes back. That's just showing a very, very momentary response. I don't know scientifically how you explain that. I'm not saying, oh my God, we can't explain it, so we have to assume it's got some mystical powers. No, I just literally don't know how to explain that. Other than, like, I know from personal experience that you can ask a question and get a fall to the right instantly, right? And then it comes right back. And if that movement is coming from a change in the skin response, how can you get a change and then an unchange so quickly? I don't know. Okay, I was body routed to an e-meter session many years ago in front of a Walmart in Oldsmart. It was very weird. Okay, so one of the famous ways that the e-meter is used is in these pinch tests. Scientologists will set up a table full of Dianetics books and a couple e-meters, and they'll try to bring people over to the table, and they'll do these pinch tests to essentially try to, with this test, prove to people that they have a reactive mind, or to prove to people that their thoughts can be measured. In fact, that's how they market these things. See a thought. They'll say, would you like to see a thought? What a stupid way to describe even how the e-meter works. These demonstrations aren't even trying to show how the e-meter actually works. It's really just a little gimmick to trick someone into thinking that this is what the e-meter does and that the e-meter is capable of measuring thought. Not even Scientologists think that the e-meter measures thought. So that's why it's so stupid when you see, would you like to see a thought? Did you know you could see your thoughts? Scientologists don't even think the e-meter measures thought or shows thoughts. So you can see that is really just a very base level marketing gimmick to make people go, oh my God, you guys have this magic machine that measures thoughts. I didn't know anything like that existed. Well, it doesn't exist, and not even Scientologists think that's what it does. It's such a stupid gimmick. And people fall for it. People fall for it. I mean, they do. So a pinch test is when you hold the cans, and then they bring the needle on the dial, and they pinch you, and the needle falls to the right, and like, oh my God, did your thought just measured on here that, you know, you didn't like that or whatever. And then they'll put the needle back on the dial and say, recall the moment of the pinch, and then the needle will move a little bit, And then they'll go, recall the moment of the pinch. And then the needle will move a little bit. And then eventually the needle will stop moving. Now, here's the thing. The pinch tests rarely go smoothly just like that. But the person holding the cans and watching the e-meter isn't familiar enough with how this machine works to realize that what the machine is doing isn't even what they're being told it's doing. You can get the e-meter to fall on anything. Like, I could sit here and hold the cans and just think of absolutely anything, and the needle's going to fall to the right, and then it's going to come back. And I could, so I, you know, if I was doing a test with you and you were holding the e-meter, I would say, oh, think of something terrible. And you think of something terrible, and the needle falls to the right. That's not significant. I could have asked you to think of ice cream, and the needle would have fallen to the right. The needle is very sensitive, and it does move a lot. And I don't know anymore what is making that needle move other than skin response. And I would love to know, from some scientific perspective, what exactly is making that needle move. And like I said, I'm talking specifically about the e-meter. I don't want to know what makes a lie detector needle move. I don't want to know what makes other machines register resistance in the human body to voltage. I want to know what makes, specifically using the e-meter as the test subject, what is making that move. So wait, I saw a documentary recently. I'm going to forget what, it was about spirituality or whatever. And they hooked a machine like an e-meter up to a yogurt, a little bowl of yogurt. And this fucking needle was moving at various times. And this was supposed to be used to be some proof of some spirituality or how we're all connected and all, some nonsensible conclusion based on sticking a needle into a cup of yogurt. But that's an example of anything, it seems, can moment to moment change in its conductivity or in its degree of resistance to an electrical flow. And when it comes to a human body, I simply don't know what it is that science says can affect those things on a second-by-second basis. Okay, let's see. Aaron, I hope you take a break from all this Scientology thought so that you can feel what it's like to exist without Scientology. I don't know what you mean, feel what it's like to exist without Scientology. I don't know if you've noticed, but I do maybe like a video a week or two. So there's an awful lot of my time I spend in my life not talking about Scientology. I'm not going to forget the 25 years I spent in Scientology. So how does someone audit themselves? Oh, good question. This is so embarrassing to actually kind of confront what Scientologists do when they audit themselves. So if you're auditing yourself, instead of holding a can in separate hands, you have a little divider. You put the cans together, bottom to bottom, and you hold both cans in one hand, right? Like half the can in this hand, half the can in this hand. And you literally sit there and you fucking think thoughts to yourself. You don't talk to yourself out loud. You think thoughts to yourself. And you're looking for the e-meter to read at the end of your thought to see if you're going to take up that question in auditing. And on the upper OT levels, like OT3, OT5, OT7, well, OT3 and OT7, you're auditing yourself. You're literally auditing yourself, but you're actually auditing the thetans that are stuck to your body. So you're not actually auditing yourself. Sometimes you'll ask yourself a question, but the question you're asking yourself, you're really looking for these body thetans. And then once you find a body thetan, you're actually asking the body thetan questions. You're thinking the question to yourself, and you've been trained to convince yourself that the e-meter reads is the fucking answers that this thetan that's stuck to you is giving to you. And you're auditing this thetan. You're auditing these, this is why the media likes to call this, you're auditing disembodied alien souls. That's, if people describe body thetans that way, they're missing the point, and they're mischaracterizing what Scientologists think they're doing. If thetans are aliens, then we're all aliens. Scientologists don't think any of us came from this planet. So calling body thetans aliens misses the point. They're thetans. We're all thetans in Scientology's perspective. I think I answered that question. I didn't answer it. I think I answered it. I didn't answer it in great detail, but I think I answered what mattered. Skin temperature, blood pressure, heart rate. These are some of the things that could be altered during a session that would affect galvanism. I agree with you. I just don't know how that directly results in e-meter reads that are just very quick. Okay. When did you realize you could fool the e-meter? From day one. From day one, I knew I could fool the e-meter. They use it to interrogate 6-year-old children to... Okay, sorry, my list of questions jumped forward here. Auditing is what is referred to as debriefing in a military situation. The military has a voice stress analyzer. That is their Emeter, just a prop. No, auditing has nothing to do with debriefing. There was an org in Albuquerque, but I'm pretty sure it's dead now. No, there is a Scientology org in Albuquerque. It's very, very small. Hi, Stu. It's okay if you miss some of the live stream. I mean, once I finish the live stream, it goes up, and it's just on my channel like any other video. I thought LRH said that thought had mass, and that's what he claimed in Emeter measures. Yeah, but he's being a little loose in his language there. It was probably just convenient to say that at the time. It's not the thought that has the mass. In fact, it's the facsimile that has the mass. So, yeah, like L. Ron Hubbard says that thetans don't have any mass, and that thought and theta are really pretty much the same thing. Now, L. Ron Hubbard says that you have a mind, and the mind is a consecutive running record of facsimiles, mental image pictures. So if I'm in the right here and now and I have a thought, he would say that in my analytical mind, a little picture was just created of the moment of me having that thought. It's the picture that would have the mass, not the thought itself, according to how Hubbard describes how all that works. Christopher Reeve made up a story on the E-meter. Did you ever do that? Well, when you say make up a story on the E-meter, do you just mean make up a story and tell it to the auditor while you're on the E-meter? I don't know what that means exactly. So is auditing the most important thing in Scientology? Yes, it is. Auditing is the most important thing in Scientology. How do they justify charging so much for it? They justify charging so much for it because one of the concepts in Scientology is that they exist to make the able more able. Think of this in the way that people think about getting a return on your investment. Or the law of diminishing returns, right? Scientology wants to get the most bang for its buck. It wants to create the most impact on society with the least amount of effort. And again, this is all a justification for just charging a lot of money and whatever. But the way they look at it is we need to cater. They want to cater to the people who are already the best among us, meaning they're the most capable, they're the best communicators, they have the most influence. Because they say if you help those people, if you help those who are already good get better, you have a better impact than if you help those who are shitty get a little bit better. And yeah, so Scientology has this phrase: we help the able become more able. That's why you don't see Scientology run soup kitchens or homeless shelters. They're not interested in helping the down and out. They're interested in helping the affluent. And if you charge lots of prices, that keeps the poor people away. And it's sort of a self-filtering mechanism. Does the auditor pocket the money, or does David Miscavige? A Scientology auditor working at a Church of Scientology does not get paid based on how much people buy auditing. So the question is, neither the auditor nor David Miscavige just gets the money. I'm not sure if you were kidding or not, but looking on what company made the E-meter. You know, for a while, Golden Era Productions at International Management, at Scientology's International Management base, Golden Era Productions is the movie studio. They also do AV production. Golden Era Productions themselves constructed the E-meter. I'm sure they had some factory that printed, stamped the parts, but Golden Era Productions did all of the assembly. They have an E-meter assembly line, and that's why Mark Headley was able to comment on like how many E-meters had ever been sold before, or how many E-meters were regularly sent to Golden Era Productions to get recertified. Every 6 months, a Scientology E-meter has to be recertified by the church to make sure it's working correctly. And so Mark Headley was able to give a really good number of how many active Scientologists there were in the entire world based on how many emeters would come back to get certified every 6 months. Now, the most recent version of the Emeter does not need to be sent in to be certified. It's done through a software update. And they did it that way so that they could actually kill an Emeter if it was owned by someone that was kicked out of the church. The church does not want people outside of the church to have operational Emeters, because the church does not want people outside of the church to be able to offer auditing to people outside of the church. And so they stopped certifying any of the previously made Emeters. And the only Emeter they will let any Scientologist use is, I think it's called the new the Mark 8. And it has software updates. And if it's not plugged in and updated through Scientology's system every 6 months, the Emeter actually doesn't work anymore. And that was their way to try and prevent people from delivering Scientology auditing outside of the Church of Scientology. Pretty interesting. Are you clear from using the Emeter? Well, the question doesn't make a lot of sense. I never, in the Scientology paradigm, attested to the state of clear. But even in Scientology, you don't go clear from using the Emeter. It's just not an accurate question. I'm not sure if you're kidding or not. I swear I read something that ex-Scientologists thought that the Emeter contributed to cancer. I can't find it now. So I've never read anything like that. If somebody said that, they may have been referring to just... a lot of Scientologists do believe that cancer doesn't have a physical cause. It has a mental or a spiritual cause, or that even undue stress over a lifetime could cause cancer or whatever. I mean, fundamentally, L. Ron Hubbard said that cancer is caused by whole track aberrations on the second dynamic. Second dynamic is sex. And the whole track is all of your past lives. So it was either whole track evil intentions on the subject of sex was the true cause of cancer. That doesn't mean all Scientologists think that, because not all Scientologists have read that LRH ever said that. But I don't know why anyone would actually feel or say that the Emeter somehow contributed to cancer. All right, looking at more of these questions. Can the person being audited see the needle or just the auditor? No, only the auditor can see what the Emeter is doing. The person getting auditing cannot. When you're so DB, you're BT on a yogurt. That's funny. So DB is a Scientology word for degraded being. So when you're such a degraded being that you're a body thetan on a jar of yogurt. That's hilarious. Chemically speaking, the needle is moved by the change in the electrical current. The low voltage current the machine sends through, the lower voltage current the machine sends through you acts as a control on what is measured as... Okay. I'm reading what's written, but what's written is mistyped. Okay. I'm going to block you. You're awesome. You think thoughts to yourself when you're auditing yourself. Oh my God, are you serious? This is why it's so dangerous for people that are prone to delusions. Absolutely. Speaking of people being prone to delusions, if you have not already watched this entertaining series of videos, find the Steve Fishman interviews. It says the Steve Fishman deposition, but it's not a deposition. So for the first hour and a half I was watching these videos, I was so convinced that this guy was legitimate. This guy has the Scientology terminology down cold. You could see he gets it wrong a couple places, and that was a little suspicious. But the way he describes... This guy basically pretends to be a Scientologist, and he fooled a lot of people, and he's a scam artist, and he's in jail for other things now. But back in the late 80s, he convinced a lot of people, including Time Magazine, and including, I think, the government, that he was a legit Scientologist. And it sounds like this guy has read pretty much everything L. Ron Hubbard ever said. And the thought process that he gives, even though he might be trolling, is legit. Like the way he describes thinking about things, the way he describes things, is legitimately the way Scientologists would think about them. And then I found out about halfway through these videos that he's a complete con artist, and he was basically trolling. And I was like, my God, he did a master class in trolling. Because those Steve Fishman videos are hilarious. And even though it is possible to go through those videos and go, oh yeah, no, he's doing a really good job here, but there's some red flags that are way too obvious to ignore. You can tell there's an illegitimacy to it. But he's so good at it. He's so good at it that I'm suggesting people watch the videos, because even though he's trolling, right? If you watch these videos, you're going to say, this guy's the most delusional person ever. This guy is the most delusional Scientologist ever. He's trolling, but he's doing an excellent job, and the things that he's saying is how other Scientologists think and is how other Scientologists believe. So even though he's trolling, he's saying shit that other Scientologists believe but would never fucking say in public. That was one of the most striking things to me about these Steve Fishman videos, is I'm like, yes, this guy is saying things that other Scientologists believe. Yes, this guy's describing a thought process that other Scientologists have. But no other Scientologist would say it in public. And the fact that Fishman is saying it in public is part of the evidence that he's just trolling. Because not even a Scientologist is crazy enough to say that shit in public. You only say that shit in private. So watch the Fishman videos, because they're awesome examples of the delusion that other Scientologists are actually under. It's just that Fishman is trolling, and so he's saying it publicly. He was never a real Scientologist. But he is mirroring what other Scientologists believe and how other Scientologists talk, actually. What else we got? What exactly would you do if you get a rock slam from a pre-clear? So a rock slam is the name of an Emeter read where the needle is just like violently sloshing all over the place, like blah, 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 blah. And you're not supposed to do anything. That's the thing. L. Ron Hubbard says that when you get a rock slam, you're just supposed to very, very carefully note down exactly what it is that the pre-clear is saying, word for word if possible, because a rock slam is supposed to indicate evil intentions on whatever subject the pre-clear is talking about. And that's all you're supposed to do. So you're performing an alien soul inception. Did you mean to say inception, or did you mean to say inspection? Body Thetans giving answers to auditing questions. Fascinating. Yes, no, that is OT3, you guys. OT3 and OT7. OT3 and OT7 is your auditing Body Thetans. When you hear about Scientologists saying, oh my God, you have to get on OT7, you have to get on OT7, OT7 is the level changed my life, oh my God. When you hear about people auditing themselves or being on OT7 for 5 years, 10 years, that means that for every day for 5 years or 10 years, 6 times a day, if you're on OT7, the church tells you you have to go in session and audit yourself 6 times a day. 6 times a day, you went into a little room, locked the door, busted out your e-meter, and telepathically spoke to Body Thetans on your e-meter 6 times a fucking day for 10 years. That is delusion, my friends. You want to talk about why Scientologists sometimes seem so wacky and disconnected from reality? Hey, if you can convince someone that for 10 years they should sit down in a room by themselves 6 times a day for maybe 15 to 20 minutes at a time and telepathically communicate with Thetans that are stuck to their body and stuck to the environment and audit them, and that they're answering questions on the e-meter, holy shit, what could you not convince that person of? I mean, really incredible. My whole time in Scientology, I did not know that's what people did on the OT levels, right? And so the one thing that keeps people in Scientology, I mean, this kept me mentally in Scientology, was thinking that these OT levels were some unexplainable magic. That just whatever was on the OT levels was so incredible that everyone who does them just says how life-changing they are. They don't tell you how they're life-changing. They give you stories on, this and that, but they're not. No Scientologist is allowed to ever tell someone else what is on the OT levels. And my whole time in Scientology, I never knew that you audited Body Thetans on the OT levels, telepathically, using the e-meter. And you might go, well, what did you think was on the OT levels? I don't know. It was such a mystery. It would drive me crazy, that feeling of not knowing and knowing I could never know and never find out. And yet everyone who finished these OT levels would just go on and on and on about how amazing and life-changing they were. And this is what keeps people sucked in, is Scientologists doing these levels and telling everyone else, oh my God, no matter what, nothing could be more important to you than getting onto these OT levels. The future of the human race depends on you getting onto these OT levels as fast as possible. And I'm just sitting there going, what the fuck could it be? How could it be that good? And then you find out it ain't that fucking good. Hello, Aaron. I saw Saturday Night Live video parody. Oh, my thing keeps jumping around, you guys. I'm sorry. Of the famous Scientology ad titled "We Stand Tall." Have you seen it? It was very funny, by the way. I could not stop laughing. It was hilarious. That was a brilliant Saturday Night Live skit. They nailed it. Are all Thetans illegal aliens? Funny question. All right, I'm going to kind of fast forward to see if I'm missing a bunch of stuff that... All right, I'm going to jump to the end, actually. I heard that Tom Cruise is OT7. That explains a lot. Yeah, he's probably finished OT7 by now. In fact, it's not possible for him not to have finished OT7 by now. And if he's finished OT7, he's finished OT8. So he's done everything there is to do auditing-wise in Scientology. Didn't you try to get away from auditing? Yes, when I was in Scientology, I never had a desire to get auditing, and I would go out of my way to avoid getting auditing. Kind of ironic, considering I had dedicated my life to working for Scientology, and yet I was not interested in getting Scientology auditing. It was something I struggled with. If someone had multiple personalities, seriously, if someone had multiple personalities, could that be that's getting through? The typing is wrong here, so I'm not sure what you're saying. The video with Maria Pia Gardini talking about the body thetans is also super hilarious. OT8 Truth Revealed. It revealed to me that I needed to leave Scientology. I have not seen that video. I don't know who you're referring to. I should look that up. Group psychosis is real. That's true. Jenna, Larry Wright thought he didn't at first, but that his behavior showed that he started to buy his own bullshit at the end. Is someone really knocking on my door right now? I don't care. I'm not going to get it. All right, well, I'll tell you what. This was just supposed to be a Q&A about how the Emeter works, and I think we've kind of covered that. So, instead of going through all the questions, we'll leave it at that for right now. I'm going to try to do another Q&A sometime in the next few days, and any of the questions that do deserve an answer here that are, like, you know, relevant to the subject, I'll answer them in the comment section below once the video's done processing. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.